today to go over the custom sound system we put in this Ford GT. One of the main objectives of this build was to keep everything completely reversible. No wires get cut in the car, no panels get cut, basically nothing modified. And if this car ever needed to go back to 100% completely stock, it could without any holes being drilled in it. The owner of this car is the original owner. The car itself only has about 11,000 miles on it. So he's drove it a little bit, but definitely a low mile car. A lot of times when people have cars like these that are a collector style car, you know, they don't want to modify them in any way because it might devalue the car. We took a lot of pride in being able to take this thing completely apart, back together, not cut anything, no cut wires, no nothing, and make it so it could be 100% reversible. One of the things this car did not have from the factory is it did not have Bluetooth streaming. So that was actually the main reason that the car came in. He wanted to be able to stream music from his phone to the stereo. The factory head unit that was originally installed in these vehicles was a Macintosh AM/FM CD player. We've dealt with these CD players before in a couple of other builds that we have done. It was pretty much the same model as an aftermarket Macintosh, which they built in like the 90s to early 2000s, which would kind of be the era of this car. We did know that that head unit does have an auxiliary input on it that was not being utilized. So what we did is we did a Moscone Bluetooth adapter that takes the Bluetooth, turns it into an RCA output, and then we ran that into the auxiliary input of the factory deck. So we wanted to keep that factory cosmetic look. It is a single DIN, meaning a regular rectangle stereo. From the factory, and most of them today are too high-tech looking, too many lights, you know, just there wasn't very many options for something that was gonna look the part of this car and give him the Bluetooth functionality. So after discussing with the customer, that's the reason we went with the Moscone Bluetooth adapter into the auxiliary input. So that way he can stream Bluetooth from his phone. He is unable to do Bluetooth calling, but that was kind of a sacrifice we made to keep the factory appearance. I believe the Macintosh was an upgrade in this car from the factory. So when you buy that, you get the Macintosh head unit. There was Macintosh 5 1/4 separates in the doors. And then there was a Macintosh about a 8 or 9 inch subwoofer in between the seats. That was basically like a volcano that came out and had a factory grill in the front. Inside there was the factory subwoofer, and it also had a factory amplifier, and that was located between the two seats here. You probably tell that the hardest part of doing this whole build would be finding space. Since there's no space in this car, we wanted to add some more amplifiers, we wanted to add a bigger subwoofer, and then upgrade the door speakers to something that's a little bit better quality. The Macintosh front speakers and the Macintosh subwoofer did sound fairly good, but the amplifier that was with it might have been the speakers, might have been partly the amplifier, but at higher volume, it started to break up a little bit. So we put quite a bit of power in here. So for amplifiers, we use the JL Audio VXI. Most of those amplifiers have a built-in digital sound processor in them. So we did the 400/4 for the highs, and then we did a 600/1 for the subwoofer. The 600/1 does not have a crossover in it, so we had to utilize the crossover that's in the 404 to feed it to the 600/1. So physically, there's the same exact size because we wanted it to look symmetrical. So we were able to put one amplifier behind each seat. Above the amplifiers, we machined a piece of aluminum that had the same cutout size holes as the factory seats did. And then we got a dimple die so we could round the corners in. And then we put some mesh behind it to replicate these holes in the seats. And then we had it powder coated black. It's a pretty cool design element. I think it turned out really nice. The back wall there too, where the amplifiers we put in, we built some panels and then we wrapped those in like a European style carpet because it kind of has a really cool texture to it. And there was a little bit of carpet on the bottom that was factory that it matches fairly well. That's the only carpet in the car. There's actually not even any carpet up front where your feet are up front. It's kind of cool. It's got more of these design elements where it's got the circles with the mesh. For the front door speakers, we added the Focal Flax 5 1/4 and tweeter. We kind of lucked out a little bit. We did a little measuring. The tweeter is the exact same size as the Macintosh one. The factory Macintosh one was front loaded. So we were able to front load these ones, make a bracket on the back so it clamps in there nice and tight, and nothing was modified. So if the Macintosh speakers need to go back in, they can. There was no altering. As for the 5 1/4, you would think that you could pull one out and put another one in. We were close. The bolt pattern was just a hair off, so we machined an adapter and then used the factory bolt holes for the mounting adapter, and then we mounted our speaker to that. So we didn't just hog out some new holes or screw in some self-tappers. Nothing was modified. As for the wires that came into the doors, originally we had done the 400/4. We were thinking we were going to do the front doors active and do all the crossovers in the amp. However, the wiring going into the door has some Tex Flex around it and some other things. There's only one speaker wire that went into the door. In order to do active, we would need 2 speaker wires to go into the door. We didn't think that it was worth trying to alter that harness into the door to get another set of speaker wires in there. We didn't want to disturb the car in any way. So what we did is we bridged that 404 down to a 2-channel amplifier. So more power, and then we used a passive crossover. The passive crossover we mounted in the door where the factory Macintosh one was by making a bracket and mounting to factory bolt hole locations. As for the wire that came into the speakers from the Macintosh, they had a Molex plug on them. We sourced the opposite end of the Molex plug, so that plugged in directly to it, so we didn't cut any wires inside the door. Everything plug and play. So when it comes back out, plug in the factory speakers, put them in, nobody would know you're there. We didn't do any sound deadening in the doors because we didn't want to stick anything to the factory panels on the inside. It's kind of a little bit of a bummer because that does help sometimes with some mid bass, but it actually turned out pretty good. They got pretty good mid bass. We did fight with a couple rattles that we kind of worked out. We found out one of the actually door switches for the window up and down was rattling, so we ordered a new switch, took care of that rattle. The last thing on the sound system that we did is we were able to integrate a 10-inch woofer in between the seats. So I didn't really like the way that the factory sub came out and looked like kind of like a volcano in the center of the car. So our ideas were to reverse the woofer and fire it to the rear of the car and leaving some space in between the enclosure and the back wall for the sound to vent out. We were able to do that by using a stacking method with some MDF wood. We had to make a curvature so that the seats right here could still recline into it and bolster out into it, and then still try and design it so that it looked like it wasn't out of place. So it was pretty challenging to design something with the limited space we have, and then also have the right amount of airspace in that enclosure for the subwoofer to perform well. So our original version, we'll call it version 1 of the subwoofer box, we were going to use a JL Audio 10 TW1 woofer. I believe it calls for, I want to say like 0.35 cubic feet in a sealed enclosure, and we were pushing it to try and get that out of this enclosure. And the enclosure kind of stuck out a little bit further than it did now. In order to get enough room for the depth of the speaker, some room on the front of the speaker so that it's not hitting the wall, and then also, something on the backside, and to get the airspace. So once we did that, we put it in there, sounded pretty good. We just thought there, it was kind of lacking something. And we looked around, we found another subwoofer manufacturer that is fairly new. It's called Truly. Their subwoofers are thinner. They can work in a little bit smaller space than the TW1. So we gave that a shot. So we put that in, and we were able to shave off some of version 1 box to kind of make it fit the same curvature of the seats in the front so it didn't stick out so far. So it flows a little bit better when you look across. And that woofer performs really well in that small of enclosure. Is that a subwoofer I would use in every single install? No. It's an expensive woofer. I think it has its purpose. It's definitely great for cars like these where you're limited space, maybe trying to put in a sidewall of a car. It definitely has it's a great sounding subwoofer, don't get me wrong, but it was 3 or 4 times the price of the JL Audio that we were going to use originally. In this car, 100% worth it. If you're just trying to build a box in the back of your Honda Civic that's just in the, middle of the back, I don't think that the extra money would be worth it for that subwoofer for the amount of gain that you would have. So that's just our honest opinion. We are a dealer for both JL Audio and Truly. I'm just giving an honest opinion that there are certain products for certain installs. A couple other items that we installed while the car was here is this car did not have any kind of backup camera from the factory, and it is extremely hard to see out your rear view mirror through this tiny little rear window and see what's behind you. And it's a very long car too, so it's hard to tell how far you are away from things when you're parking. So since we weren't able to do like a double din style deck or bigger deck at all in the front that has a screen on it, our solution was to replace the rear view mirror. So we removed the factory rear view mirror, which was extremely scary because I'm guessing a new windshield, if you screw that up, is not cheap. We were able to remove that, and then we installed a new rear view mirror that has a screen built into it, and it has 2 video inputs. So one of the video inputs, when you put it into reverse, it'll turn on the reverse camera. When you take it out of reverse, it goes back to a regular mirror. And then there's a power button in the center. If you just press that button, it will go to a front camera that we installed also. That'll help him park so he's not hitting a curb or something like that. Where we put the front camera is there's actually a bolt up there, a factory bolt. So we made a bracket off that bolt that holds a charge port and then also the front firing camera. And like I said, all that stuff can be taken out, bolt goes back in, nothing was cut. The final thing that we installed when the car came in, this car, obviously he's a collector. This car sits in his garage for a lot of the years, so he'll put it on a trickle charger so that the battery doesn't go dead. So when it came in, the trickle charger cable was up under the hood there, so we'd have to have the hood open, have a cord across, probably with a cloth so the cord doesn't rub on anything. We pitched the idea to put a magnetic charge port on the front up there right behind where the camera is. So we were able to install that, run it to his battery, and so now when he goes to pull in, all he has to do is just click that in. We also installed a new battery for him. He had an Optima red top he'd had for 8 years or so, was working great, but since we had the car apart, we reinstalled the same exact battery just for fitment and stuff. It was just easy to replace it with what was already in there. So we swapped that out, so he should be good for another hopefully 8-10 years, especially if he keeps on the trickle charger. Well, I guess that's all I got on this one. I'll list how many hours we've got into this build. You might want to sit down before you see how many hours are into it. It was a lot. We're not going to lie, it wasn't cheap. We used some great equipment. We did the best possible job we could. We did not alter anything in the car. Everything is 100% reversible. So that takes time to do it the right way. And that's how we wanted it done. So we got it done. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. And if you like what you're seeing, please hit the like, please hit the subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks. you.